Hello there. Welcome back to A Pebble for Your Shoe. We've been doing a several part series on how to study the Bible, and this will be the last video on that. And we're gonna do a video that's a little different. I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through some of the poetic books and how to study the poetic books because they're different from the rest of the other books. You don't read them like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. It's more of a verse by verse study and see what each verse tells you rather than reading the whole thing in context with like the chapters before, the chapters afterwards. This is more of a verse by verse to see what each verse can remind you or teach, reveal to you. So I have a guest, special guest today. It's my sister Marie. Hi, Marie. And we're going to read this. I thought it'd be fun to show you guys how it is to read verse by verse and just do a deep dive and see what each verse has to say. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. Marie, you want to read the first verse?
If I raise my eyes to the hills, from where will my help come?
Now, the word hills in some translations says mountains. And so it's important to know who some of the psalmists were. So this one is called a Song of Ascents. And if you think about who ascended hills or mountains, you kind of get an idea. If you don't have like a study Bible that tells you who the psalm is written by, you can kind of guess as to who would you guess this psalmist is if you read about a song of ascending and mountains. Who's the first person that pops in your mind, Maria?
Moses,
Moses. Why?
because he's going up the mountain Sinai to get the Ten Commandments.
Yep. And the Torah.
Yeah.
So, what is it about the first verse? What kind of pops out to you in the very first verse? I raise my eyes up to the mountain. Where will my help come from? What are some keywords that you get there?
Help,
Help. Why does Moses need help?
because the people, he's concerned about the people and they're all upset.
Yeah, because they're grumbling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're in the middle of the desert. They've had their great exit out of Egypt, and they had their Red Sea division moment, and now they're into the desert and they're thirsty
They're
and they're
hungry.
hungry, and so they're complaining, and so Moses is remembering that, and he's writing this in the Psalms, and where does he look for the help?
The mountain.
Why does he look to the mountain?
Because that's what he remembers where he first met God.
Yeah. Where was that? Where did he first meet God?
The burning bush.
The burning bush, right? He was kind of in the wilderness, is what it says. And what was he doing in the wilderness?
Taking care of sheep.
Yep. Take care of whose sheep?
His father-in-law's sheep.
Father-in-law Yethro. And now we're like 40 years past that time. Actually, maybe more than that because he's saying goodbye to Israel. So it's been another 40 years. So it's 80 years. So it's like 120 now. And at the Sinai moment, he's kind of doing the same thing, right? That he was doing back in Exodus 6, the burning bush. He's got another flock.
Yep.
It's a different father who owns this flock.
Yep.
It's his heavenly father. All right. So, verse 2. My help comes from Adonai, the maker of heaven and earth. Anything significant about that?
Mm. That God is eternal and he's the one that provides and makes everything.
Yep. Now, how is God, verse 2, if you were to compare verse 1 and verse 2, what are things that are similar and why? And what are comparison contrast things between the two verses? Like in verse 1, he's looking at the mountain and he says, "That's where my help comes from." In verse 2, where does it say his help comes from?
From God.
Yeah.
So God is like the mountain.
Yes. How is
So
God
God
and the
is
mountain similar?
strong, big, steadfast, not changing.
Yeah. You sit in its shadow, kind of in a way, right? Both of
Mm.
them. Um, any other similarities between a mountain and God? You might not know this, but in Hebrew, there's a word called Horeb, which is actually the name of the mountain that he first has the burning bush experience. And in Hebrew, the letters are spelled Het, which is like H, R, which is Resh, and Beit, which is B, Horeb, Hareb. And that means sword in Hebrew. So, how is a mountain like a sword? How do you think a mountain could be like a
It's like
sword?
the tip of the sword.
Could be like a tip of a sword. But what does a sword do?
Cuts.
It cuts or it
Divides.
divides or separates, right? And
Oh,
what does a
heaven
mountain,
and earth are separated.
right? A mountain is kind of the division point
Mhm.
between heaven and earth, right? And so there's an image here of God who is his help. This is God. This is the point which Moses looks to get the help from heaven, where heaven meets earth. This is the mountaintop.
Mhm.
You ever gone to like summer camp and you get those mountaintop experiences, right? Where you get spiritual reflection, spiritual revelation, you feel energized. It's like, because that's like a division point. That's where heaven and earth are meeting.
Mm.
So yeah, that's kind of the thing for Moses too. He's having this nostalgia moment of his two encounters of the mountain
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
his encounters with God. And so verse 3, you want to read that one?
He will not let your foot slip. Your guardian is not asleep.
Anything pop out to you?
Yeah, because
Any
he's
revelation there?
that God's watching over him and that he heading up the mountain, he won't let him slip. That,
Yeah.
that
I mean,
he's
that's
not asleep.
literal, right?
Yeah.
That it's mountains are steep and
Hmm.
slippery and sometimes jagged and you can trip. And he didn't have tennis shoes. He didn't have um, combat boots or hiking boots
Hmm.
to give him a good grip. So he could have slipped any time. So that's like a literal God's protecting him. But what other like imagery do you get there about his guarding him, being a guardian and not being asleep? Do you have any revelation there?
Like his eye's always on him.
Yeah.
Like he's in control no matter what.
Yep.
And then that he's his keeper.
Yep.
He'll protect him.
Yep. Kind of like Cain and Abel and the other brother Seth. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, you are. And kind of like in Eden when God asked Adam to be a guardian, right? Of the tree, to guard the tree of life. And so these are kind of images that this may kind of parallel. Um, like Moses is kind of the shepherd. He's the guardian of God's sheep, Israel. And God, the greater shepherd, is guarding over Moses as one
Mm.
of his individual sheep. So you're seeing a father-son relationship through all of these stories, as well as the father guarding Moses himself as Moses guards his brothers. You see that in all these stories. And I find something cool. I just now realized is that it talks about how he does not sleep. Because why doesn't God sleep? Because he doesn't exist in time. Our world has time. But God's world, he exists outside of the dimension of time. He created time for us to survive. But God, he lives in a world that exists, that's timeless, has no divisions, right?
Mm.
Because what's time? It's a division of seconds. And seconds are a division of minutes. And minutes are a division of hours. Hours of days. Days of years. Years of eternity. And so God exists outside all of that. He's unified. There's no division in his world, right? So therefore, there's no time. See how he exists beyond time? He doesn't need sleep because he doesn't exist in a world that can define sleep. There's no definition of it. He's outside of that definition. It's a different paradigm. So verse 4, no, the guardian of Israel, the keeper of Israel, never sleeps or slumbers because there's no division in his world.
Now it's switched over to
Right.
personal thing where it's just talking about him to Moses. Now he's saying his relationship to the whole nation of Israel.
And to the universe in itself. He's outside of that whole realm. So he's not defined by it, which means he can control it. What verse are we on now? Verse 5?
5.
Adonai is your guardian at your right hand. What do you get any revelation there?
Christ's right hand, mercy, blessing, provision.
Yeah. That's on the right. Because on the left hand, that's the side of the law, right? The din in Hebrew.
Oh, and Adonai is your guardian at your right hand.
At your right hand.
So he's like, we're supposed to be the keeper. Moses is the keeper. And guardian is also, and he's asking like the brothers to be the keepers of one another or to redeem the other. So in a way, he's also already foreshadowing or saying that I'm going to be your redeemer, right?
Yeah, Adonai is your guardian, and he's on your right hand, which is your hand of the side of blessing. Future blessing. Where Yeshua sits, he sits on the right hand of the Father.
So he's already referring to that.
He's giving foreshadow.
Yeah.
In a way, a little bit of that. In a way, a reminder that all the blessings that came from the right, that's God who is the guardian of that. Adonai provides you with shade. So how is shade in your right hand? You see the comparison there? Adonai is your guardian at your right hand, and then Adonai provides you with shade. So if you're seeing the structure here, Adonai, guardian, provider, right hand, and shade. So what is it about your right hand, which is blessing and mercy and grace? That's what's he illustrating as a comparison between right hand and all the benefits of the right and shade?
Help.
Yeah. What if you sit in the shade, you can relax and rest. Why? Because you don't have to do anything, right? You don't have to work for it.
Mm-hmm.
God's actually the one providing the grace and the mercy. So you can sit in the shadow of God and just receive blessing. You don't need to stress over it. Right? Because what's Moses stressing over here? Remember, he's asking for God for help. Why? Because the people are hungry, the people are thirsty, right? And they're grumbling and they're complaining. And yet God's saying, sit in the shadow of the mountain, sit in the shadow, sit at the right hand.
I got it under control.
Yeah, don't stress. Adonai provides you with shade. So, verse 6, you want to read 6?
Yeah, the sun can't strike you during the day or even the moon at night.
Now, what do you see there? You're seeing a division of a day, right? You're seeing the Havdalah, like the actual, in Hebrew, Havdalah means divide. The division, it's the closing ceremony of Shabbat, where the evening comes, and that's the end of one day, and the evening also marks the start of the next day, right? Because in Genesis 1, it says there was evening and morning one day. It doesn't say morning and then evening. The day actually starts in the evening at the Havdalah. And also in Genesis, it says he Havdallah light and darkness. He havdalad the upper waters from the lower waters. He havdalad the land and the sea from the land from the water. He havdalad all the seeds, after their own kind. So there's no mixing of seeds. He separated them. He kind of made them set apart from each other. So those are all Havdalahs. He Havdalah the seasons, the luminaries. Um, those are all Havdalahs. He's basically the divider. He's the one who draws the sword. And what did Yeshua say? I did not come. I came here to divide between father and son. Right? It's not everything is about unity on this world. It's about God makes things separate and divides things as well. Um, Interesting point. I never thought of that before either. Um, so yeah, he provides you with shade. The sun can't strike you during the day, verse 6, or even the moon at night. So it's reminding us of God's ability to have Abdallah, to have division, to have Horeb.
And control it within it.
And he has a purpose behind all of it. So Adonai will guard you against all harm. He will guard your life. Again, the word guard, right? Takes you back to Eden, where you will guard the tree of life. And then you have the angels guarding the path back to Eden, back to the garden.
Adam guarding and keeping Eden.
Yeah. And then the brother having to guard the other brother, being your brother's keeper. And so God's painting this illustration through Moses in this psalm of God's character and his heart. That he wants us all to be like him, to be his sons who reflect the Father, who guard after our brothers and sisters, the way Moses guarded. Like even Moses on the mountain, he guarded Israel in spite of their sin of the golden calf from the destruction from God, right? Because didn't God say he was going to destroy them as soon as you start to go back down the mountain? So Moses didn't go back to the mountain on the mountain. He stayed up there and he kind of tried to figure out a way to guard his brothers and sisters, and he did. He figured out a way to remind God of his promise to Abraham. So, yeah.
But not to say that God forgot that promise.
No, he didn't forget. He didn't change God's mind either. What really happened is Moses was the one who was changed. He is the one saying, these people are grumbling against me.
And he was ready to give up on them.
Give up on them. And he changes to become the person who actually defends his brothers and guards his brothers. And so that's, in a way, God kind of using reverse psychology to change Moses. Not that God was changed himself. Yeah. Adonai will guard your coming and your going from now on and forever. Now, what image comes to mind when you think of coming and going? Do you have any?
Going in and out of the house and that little thing.
The mezuzah?
Yeah.
Now, what is why is a mezuzah slanted? I've heard a lot of people ask me that question. Like, you've probably wondered that when you've seen them. Most people wonder, why is it on an angle? And some of the ancient rabbis and scribes argued that it should be vertical to point to God. Others have said it should be horizontal to remind man of his horizontal, earthly, finite being. And so to compromise, they ended up doing it at an angle to show that we don't always have to be right. That we need it's more important to have an agreement and compromise and have peace with each other. And so they decided to do it on a slant. And it also shows that you can relax and be chill and just be calm and have shalom, peace. And it's more important to have shalom, wholeness, nothing broken, nothing missing, than to be right all the time. And so that's why he closes this psalm saying you're coming and you're going from now on and forever, to remember that we can relax. We can be at peace and be whole. We don't have to be divided divided against our complaining, grumbling brothers. That we can have peace even in the guardianship of each other. because God is the shadow. And that's kind of the nostalgia Moses is having when he wrote this psalm, so that he can remember, yeah, they grumbled. Yes, they were children. Yes, they complained. Yes, I worried about ascending and descending the mountain and slipping and having to deal with all these issues. Yet God was the one who did it all. I sat in his shadow and I was able to have peace and relax and sit in his shadow. So that's pretty much what this psalm is about. Um,
It's almost like in a way God's saying in this psalm, or Moses saying in the psalm that a lot of times, especially like me as a mom, it's like, oh, I have to control my kids in order for them to do well, to be safe, to be stable in life. But then it's almost like, oh, I can trust God that
yeah,
even if the kids go their way, or even if they don't do exactly what I tell them to do, that He's still in control.
yeah, that's exact. You're spot on that. Like, there's a story of this guy named Bezalel, who also his name means to sit in the shadow of God. He was the first architect who built the Mishkan, the
Hmm.
tent of meeting, and God chose him because he knew how to just relax and shadow what God actually did the work by holding the hand of Bezalel, and he just shadowed God, and he got it. And so that's kind of what God's painting here, what Moses is trying to. I'm sure Moses remembered Bezalel when he was writing this, because he mentioned shadow several times. And the interesting thing is, right after it talks about Bezalel in the book of Leviticus, it talks about the very next verse is the work will get done. 6 days of the week, the work will get done. And on the seventh day, you'll have a Shabbat. And that means that God is actually the one doing the work. Because it doesn't say 6 days of the week, you, Israel, will do the work. It says the work will get done, meaning that God is the one actually doing the work through the hands of Israel. And on the seventh day, no matter where the work was at, they had to stop and rest. And that's what it's like to be a parent. When you have a child, you need to stop mothering or fathering all the time. The way God just stopped on the sixth day, after the sixth day, he ceased striving and had a day that was different where he just rested. And so that's the same thing. God will do the work through us, and we'll see it if we take that Shabbat. We'll see it. But yeah, that's what Moses is doing here. Thanks for joining us. Please like and subscribe. This is the Pebble for your shoe today. Bye. Bye.
Oh, right.